Hi, I'm Jim W6LG, your YouTube Elmer. Welcome to my radio room here in hot Rockland, California. It's going to be 101 degrees today. There's some fans running in here to try to keep the room cool. So I'm doing the best I can to cover up that noise. In economics, there are three definitions that are pretty basic, and they revolve around, bear with me now, price, cost, and value. So if you were, for example, looking at a house that was being constructed, cost might be the cost to construct the house. The price might be the price at which it's sold. Sometimes it could be determined to be the asking price. And value, what is the market value of that house? What are other houses like it worth? In some cases, like this subdivision, there's this exact same model for blocks. So it's not hard to figure out what the value is. You may put an asking price of $1 million on the house, but in fact it's worth half that much. So what has that got to do with ham radio? I've had several friends and guys who've emailed me recently spend a lot of money on stuff that I don't think had much value. And here's what I mean. And we're talking about $1,000. I've often talked about how important it is to spend the money on the antenna system. Feedline, coax switches, the rest of it, the antenna, of course. Some folks I know have spent $700 for a vertical antenna that makes some wild claims about what it can do. So they've got $700 in the antenna, and they've bought 100 feet of LMR 400, and that was $150, and a common mode choke that was another $100. Pretty soon they're at $1,000, and you add in a few other things, and it's not hard to get there. The cost to make those goods, we don't know. We can estimate. You can estimate the cost of a lot of things. The price we know, because that was the selling price. I have a neighbor that's less than 2 miles away, and he spent $1,000 on his antenna system. And we talked on the phone, and we talked on Skype. He's a really nice guy. I like him a lot. His background is real estate, so we've got a lot in common. In talking to him, he spent roughly $1,000 on his antenna. Now, I'm talking to guys in Europe and other places, and they're quite strong here. And our locations are identical. There's really no difference between the two. And he can't hear them, or he can just barely make out what they're saying. And it's a puzzlement. Why is it that way? Why is it that I can hear them and he can't? He spent a lot of money on his antenna. I spent a similar amount a long time ago. Today it would be, I think it would be $3,000 to do, oh yeah, maybe $4,000 to do what I did, to install what I did, because the stuff I have is older. So the value of his antenna system, even though the selling price was $1,000, is pretty much zero. And that's sad. And there's another guy that I got an email from, and it's sort of the same thing. He's bought a vertical antenna that has radials that are built into it. It makes wild claims about what it can cover. For example, it pretty much covers everything from 30 megahertz down to about 12 megahertz. All of that. It says it covers all of it. It says if you're running high power, 1500 watts, you need to have a tuner. So I guess if you're running a kilowatt, you don't need a tuner. That would be a surprise. The gentleman who wrote to me is a really nice guy, and I've corresponded with him in the past. Another thing he's looking at is a common mode choke. The manufacturer of this common mode choke makes the claim that if you put this common mode choke on your coax line, it will reduce your noise by 2 to 3 S units. 3 S units is bunches, even 2 S units. That's 12 dB, which is about 20 times. So this common mode choke, they claim, would reduce the noise 20 times. Well, I asked a good friend of mine in South Africa, ZS3Y Volker, what he thought, just to get his opinion, because he's been around like I have a long time. And his comment was really appropriate, and that is, well, it depends on the coax and the noise and a whole bunch of other variables. You might get some reduction, but likely, in terms of noise, 0. And I agree with that. If you've got, as ZS1SBW has pointed out, a really good shield on the coax, its ability to pick up noise is severely limited. Should you use a common mode choke? Absolutely. Should you expect it to reduce noise by 3 S units? Never. What's the point? I'm getting a lot of emails from guys who are trying to do the right thing, and they're new to amateur radio, and they're spending $1,000 on an antenna that makes unsubstantiated claims of incredible performance. In fact, some of them it says high performance. One of them, the first sentence calls it a vertical twice, a high performance vertical that covers all these frequencies in a vertical antenna. So it's just so poorly written. In fact, the whole paragraph that describes the antenna is ridiculous in the way it's written. Can an antenna cover from roughly 30 megahertz down to 12 megahertz? Yeah, but it's not that antenna. Now, I have an antenna here. This covers, yeah, it's an antenna. It's vertically polarized, horizontally polarized. It covers all frequencies with a 1-to-1 SWR if you use the right antenna tuner. And it doesn't hear for beams. It doesn't cost very much, not even $10 probably. What's its value as far as an antenna goes? 0, because it radiates pretty much 0. We're back to what is the value of the antenna that somebody is trying to sell to you. How do you know? Well, you can't trust the reviews on eHam and other places. They're just, I've read through them, they're ridiculous. But look to the guy in your neighborhood that's a DXer. If he's not in your neighborhood, maybe he's in your county, your state, and talk to him and ask that person who's a successful person, what are you doing? Would you put up this antenna? What do you think about its performance? How would it compare to what that guy has up? In other words, this vertical antenna that is just cockamamie, a dipole would outperform it. Now, a dipole would cover one band. Off-center fed dipole, maybe you could get a couple, 3 bands out of it. Or a fan dipole, maybe you get 3 or 4 bands out of it. And it wouldn't cost you $1,000. It might cost you might, with coax and other stuff, you might be at 150, but maybe 200, but not 1,000 USD we're talking about. So talk to somebody that's successful about the antenna that you're considering. Does it have good value? What do you think? Is that an antenna you would put up? Do you see that antenna installed on guys that have gigantic antenna array systems? K3LR, KE5EE, and others that have these enormous antenna systems? Would he put up one of those $1,000 verticals, or would he stack 6 of those $1,000 verticals? Well, no. What he did was he stacked step IR antennas and used those 3 elements. They're not gigantic, and they work great. I mean, he's working the world. Would those verticals work as well? Not even close. So you need to investigate stuff. Don't rely on product reviews. Don't rely on product reviews on the website. Try to talk to somebody that you know and you trust. Try to talk to somebody who has a successful, proven record of being on the air a long time, and has gone through several antenna systems. Use that person's experience to save yourself some money. I brought it up because I felt bad that these guys had spent so much money, and the one guy, the neighbor, for an antenna that is deaf. Got a great SWR, but it's deaf. And I'll discuss more about one of those antenna systems in the next video. Again, price is what it sells for. What, like if you buy it from DX Engineering, cost is what it costs the manufacturer to make it, which we can estimate, but it doesn't matter much. And what value does it bring to your station? What is the value of that antenna? That's a bit of a warping of those three definitions, but I think it helps. I am Jim, W6LG, an amateur radio operator for 58 years in Rockland, now in Rockland, California, near Sacramento, and it is, I believe, 101. Ouch. See you later. Thanks for watching.